What's up, everybody? I'm just James. Marcellus couldn't join us this week, but this week I get to kick it with my longtime friend, Cal. Cal, what's up, man?
James, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. This has been a long time coming and can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, so you had me on your podcast, so it's only right I bring you out on mine. And, Marcellus is really sad that he couldn't be here, but he was like, yeah, press on, man. I want you to sit down with your boy. So I really appreciate that. But this is our first episode back in a while. So what I want to remind everyone is how we get down. We start off with a vibe check. So Cal, I'm going to read that off, and then you're just going to give me a little bit of feedback about what that means to you and what resonates. Life's not about who's real to your face. It's about who's real behind your back.
I love that quote, and it makes a lot of sense because people will say what they want in front of your face and tell you what you want to hear, but behind closed doors, what are they saying behind your back? Are they there for you? And it honestly reminds me of a quote, being a coach myself, which we'll get into later, about the best athletes being the ones who work just as hard when the coach isn't watching. What are you going to do when someone isn't watching you and when people aren't there? And I think they resonate with each other, and that's how you know who your real friends are.
Yeah. Dang, yeah. So, and I kind of agree with you that, especially in the climate that we're in today, where with social media and just how people, the youth and adults, all kind of treat each other. It's who are you behind someone's back,
right?
And so
treating each other with kindness, that's what we need in this world.
Yeah, truly. So Cal, kind of tell the people, if you guys haven't, make sure you go check out my episode on his show, Kicking It with Cal, right? Yeah. So that's over on YouTube. So shout out your YouTube and stuff so they can check you out too.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube at Cal Denecke, and then Kicking It with Cal is the name of my podcast. I had James on a few months ago, and we shared a lot of fun stories from growing up together and, finding life experiences along the way and just relating to a lot of stuff. And I feel like we have a lot in common with, what we see in people and what we're trying to do with, our podcast and just connecting and everything that we're going to get into today. So yeah, go check it out.
Yeah, right on. All right. I wanted to plug that early because I forget at the end, right? So Cal, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are and what you do today.
Yeah, so I'm a middle school teacher. I teach 8th grade history. I live in St. Petersburg, Florida. I grew up with James in Macomb, Illinois, small town roots. And I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. I really wanted to be a coach. In 6th grade, our teachers actually had us write down on a piece of paper what we wanted to be when we grew up. And I wrote down that I wanted to be a Division I basketball coach. And then on the day I graduated high school, they gave those all back to us. And I saw that I wanted to be a coach. And I knew going into college that was still something that I could attain for myself. And no, I'm not a Division I basketball coach, and I don't think I will be. But coaching is something that I love to do with teaching at the middle school level because kids at that age are very moldable and they need direction in their life. So I think of myself as a teacher and a coach first because it's what I put most of my energy into. But I like to do a lot of other things as well, like host the podcast, love to play sports with my friends, travel the world in the summers when I have 2 months off to just go do what I want. So I have a lot of different interests, but that's a little bit about me, and I enjoy my lifestyle, if I'm being honest.
I enjoy seeing it, man. You're always doing something over the summer. I'm like, dang, that man Cal living it up.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome. So from Macomb, now Macomb is a small, less than 10,000 when college is out. What is that transition like? I'm gonna jump and then we're gonna backpedal, right? But what was that transition like going from small town to such a major city?
Yeah, growing up in a small town for me was great. When I come back home now, it feels a little different, being in our early 30s and kind of seeing how things have shifted. But I couldn't have asked for a better childhood with, the freedom that I had, the friends I made, getting to do the things I wanted. But to transition to being in a metropolitan area, Tampa, St. Pete, with over 1 million people, it is different. And there's just major differences that I enjoy, like the anonymity of being in a place where you can go to any grocery store anywhere and not know a soul. Yeah. And to me, that's cool. But I also miss walking into the local grocery store and people asking about, how are your folks doing? How are your brothers? And so it's that give and take of what do you want from your experience in public and just in general. So the transition was pretty seamless, honestly. I had went to school at Illinois State in Bloomington Normal, where there's over 100,000 people. So I kind of eased my way into being in a bigger place. But culturally, there's a lot of differences, especially being in the South versus being in the Midwest. And I think the values that people have in different parts of the country are pretty evident. So
yeah. Okay. So what would a few of those values that you notice like right off rip?
Just you don't, in being in a bigger place, you don't feel the connectedness that you would in small town Midwest. I mean, you almost feel lost at times because everything is so much more fast paced and you don't know as many people, and you feel like you're kind of just floating through and you're in the cracks. Whereas when I'm back home and I see people and I recognize that's somebody's uncle, that's somebody's brother, and I don't feel like when you're in a place like where I'm at, where everyone comes down because of the weather, because of the beaches, because of the professional sports, the entertainment, they're there for different reasons. It's not necessarily because of family. Whereas around here, it's family based and people go home to be with family. And so it's been a struggle for me to kind of see like what do I truly value? And I love the feeling of being connected, but I also love how much there is to do in a city. When I can go to a concert any time of year, any time of week, I can go to the beach, I can go do these things, where when I was in small town Illinois, it was not a part of my life. And so you kind of give and take the social atmosphere of it all.
Yeah, no, I bet, because Macomb, Quincy, Jacksonville, I moved a lot, guys. But like we could walk across town and you would always see someone, and my dad, he was like, I know someone always has their eye on you, and that is something you don't get in major cities, because you really don't know. And if you're fresh too, or I guess they call it green, if you're green these days and you are a trusting and kind individual, they look to take advantage of you too. So I think that transition cannot always be the smoothest for people. So I'm glad to hear that it has been smooth for you, especially going to a larger school, because you've always been a kind person. You guys might not know this, but when I first left Macomb in 6th grade, Cal was the only person that I kept contact with on a regular basis, in a sense of not weekly or monthly, but like we would check in at least once or twice a year, and that went a long way. Then there were other people too. I want to shout out the Bishop, or I know him as McLean. He has been, I don't know what he goes by these days, but McLean, he would check in, but he would check in with my brother because my brother was so fond of him, and it was like you don't get those relationships in big cities.
Mm-hmm. And you had always mentioned that I was one to reach out, and this was before I even had a cell phone. And so, this is years ago, and whether it was MSN Messenger or email or however we did it, we made it work, and it shows, being here years later.
Yeah. So I don't know. I appreciate you, man. So now let's go back to the start. You go to ISU, you're in that environment, 100,000 people coming from a town of less than 10,000. Mm-hmm. Tell me about the atmosphere there, being on campus and seeing a lot of different things, because Macomb, you get the pigs, you get corn, you get wheat, and having friends from the city come down and them experiencing a pig truck fall over on the square and pigs running around, that wasn't regular to them. That was shock to them. Whereas to you, it might not have been as uncommon. So tell me about going to ISU.
Yeah. I mean, when I packed up my grandma's van and left my parents' house for the first time, I was 20 years old. I had done 2 years of community college in Macomb, and it was the most freeing experience of my life. The year I got to Illinois State when I was 20 was the best year of my life. My eyes were open, the perspective was changed. And yes, I was going from a small town to a bigger area, but honestly, the most shocking part about my experience meeting new people was being in Macomb. There's a lot of farm towns around us. Mm-hmm. So honestly, the little, consolidated schools around us looked at us as kind of like the uppity kind of like bigger city kids, which it's not at all. So when I get to ISU, I'm meeting everyone from the Chicagoland area who's saying, you're from the sticks, you're from the boonies. Yeah. And so it was a different perspective of, honestly, where money's at. And then there's so much money in the Chicagoland area. I was learning like, how people were raised differently. And I felt that me and my friend group growing up, we were all pretty grounded, and our families all looked out for each other. And the social class divide never seemed to be super apparent in my life. But when I got to college and that perspective kind of changed, I really started to kind of understand, how just different parts of the state in general, and there were people from outside the state too, but I really kind of got a feel for how things are different just 3 hours, up I-55.
Yeah. Dang. Yeah. So now going through all this, do you think that changed you, or did it help you discover who you are?
Well, a big part of my journey at Illinois State and kind of discovering who I was came through a program called Alternative Breaks. Okay. And so before I got introduced to this group, I was always just the sports kid. Like, I always played sports. I played college baseball for 2 years. And so my free time was always training, playing, and never really getting to travel through that. And now when I stopped playing baseball, I got to this group where they put 45 strangers on a bus, and the goal was to go down to a community somewhere in the United States and help out through service work. And so when I saw that through an email, I immediately jumped on it and said, that sounds fun. I love people. I love helping. And so we took a bus down to Central Florida, which is kind of ironic that I'm in Florida now. And we did work on an animal rescue facility. So that week that I spent there, I met a ton of different people. It was a very vulnerable, kind of like open up, debrief, let's talk about our lives situation. Mm-hmm. And I just remember coming away from that week, meeting a few lifelong friends, doing work that was meaningful. And I thought to myself, now I want to travel and I want to help people. And it inspired me more to teach and to really just get into what I was passionate about, because now sports are over. I can coach and I can do them for fun, but that's no longer the goal in my life. Yeah. And so I did that first trip and I was just hooked. And so the rest of my college experience, I did trips to Memphis, Tennessee, Michigan, St. Louis, and then I went to Guatemala my senior year. And that really just opened up my eyes, and I think helped me so much. It helped me grow into who I am. And I'll always be grateful for that. So traveling and helping people through my profession is what I learned through college. And honestly, I'm super grateful for it.
Yeah, no, that sounds dope, because I'm glad that you got to have those experiences, simply because a lot of people that come from the boonies, the sticks, their only major city is St. Louis, or maybe it is Chicago, but it's downtown Chicago. It's not actually seeing it. So they're just surrounded by a bunch of other people who aren't forced to get to know each other. So you really had a chance to connect to people. And you mentioned that you also enjoyed helping people. Well, you released this song a while back in honor of your brother, and I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I'd love to. So to rewind, in early 2016, actually right when I got back from Guatemala doing this trip, I was on a high of having just the best time with some people from college. And then I received a phone call from my mom, and in shocking news, we found out that my oldest brother, Adam, had died by suicide. And it was something that none of us had ever imagined. We didn't have any signs. It was honestly like getting hit by a train. And I'll never forget that phone call. And honestly, just waking up the next morning was the biggest realization that, this is reality. This isn't a dream. That vividness of waking up the next day is something that will stick with me forever. So as time went on, our family is coping with, the loss of, one of my heroes, someone who I based a lot of my life around, with his passions in hip hop music and culture and basketball and things that, an older brother should be doing. So as time went on, I started to find ways to cope and to let my emotions out, and one of those things was to write. And Adam was a huge hip hop fan, and he got me into Jeezy and Lil Wayne and all the guys we grew up on. And so I just started to write about him and to let myself express who he was and his story. So I did a few songs about him, and they were basically like take a beat that's jacked from a song that I liked and then write over it. But
that's how we all start.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere. And I never thought of myself as a musician. My middle brother, Eli, is the musician of the family. He has a PhD in trumpet and performs with his wife, Hannah. Shout out to the Deneckes. Go look them up. But I wanted to do something like big for my brother. And so in 2020, I got connected with a friend of mine named Cooper Smith, who is a great musician himself. He had heard my brother's story and how, mental health affects all of us. And we wanted to collab and do something special. So he sent me a hook. The song is called Mistake. We can put the link in the description.
Of course.
You guys can check it out. It's on YouTube. And he sent me the link, and then COVID hit, and I spent 3 months just in the basement of the house I was living in Bloomington, just writing and writing and writing. And it's only 2 verses that I rapped to, but I actually went through it the other day. I found it as I was moving, and it's just pages on pages of scribbled out chicken scratch of me trying to, perfect this craft. And we put it together. And on the last day before I moved to Florida, so this was in the summer of 2020, we shot a music video for it with one of Cooper's friends, Noah, who is a videographer. And it was honestly just the perfect ending to this chapter of my life in Illinois, where I got to honor my brother through doing a music video and showing people that we all go through struggles, and you're not a mistake. And that's the concept of the song in the video. And I love that I got to do something that was creative, and I was always kind of made fun of in my family for having no musical talent. So this was kind of like I have a little bit
there's
too.
a little something to me.
Yeah. And I felt really proud, and there was a huge outpour of, hey, this was great. I showed it to X, Y, and Z people, and they were helped from it. So honestly, I love it, and I love that people can listen to it and feel some type of relation, because mental health is something that's not talked about enough. And through music, I think we can really connect with people.
Yeah, I agree. I always say music is a universal language, because sometimes when you can't find the words, they find them for you.
Absolutely.
Going along with your suicide awareness and your goal for the song, you also became part of a group where you guys did a walk or a run every year.
Yeah.
So I'm on the Alzheimer's Association committee. I was in Jacksonville. Now I do it in Quincy. So we raise money for the Alzheimer's Association. And so I'm curious if that is similar to what we do. So tell us what it's like to be involved. First, how you got involved, what's it like being involved, and do you think it's important for not only those who have those thoughts, but for those who, have experienced friends or anything else to get involved? Do you think that's a good way for them to do so?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually wear this blue wristband every single day. It's AFSP, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. It's a national brand that my mom actually found very early on after Adam passed. So I have to shout out my mom for the whole walk and everything to get me involved in what it is. So she started the walk in Macomb months after my brother had passed, and it's grown over the last 10 years into something that you wouldn't think a small town could raise over $20,000 for just one day of, walking to raise awareness for suicide prevention. And so I can fly home occasionally for those events when I can make it. And it means so much to my mom and my family, because you go to an event where, a lot of people might be hesitant because suicide isn't talked about a lot. And then you show up and there's hundreds of people who are all going through something that you are. So you automatically feel drawn in by these people who are going through something similar. And then we walk around town. There's specific beads. Each color represents a different loss. So I always wear the orange beads for loss of a sibling. But there's different ways that you can show, how you were affected without having to go up and tell somebody what happened. You look at the color and I connect with that person through that. So money is raised. There's collages for the ones who have passed. There's competitions to see which team can raise the most money, which is a cool thing to do. I can blast it out on social media, and I always get donations from friends and family because they know it's near and dear to my family's heart. And so my mom has just spearheaded this thing for the last 10 years. And then I've gotten involved down in Florida as well because it's a national brand, and they have walks all across the country. So if you're anyone who has been affected by suicide and you're unaware of AFSP, you can look on their website and find a walk that's happening around your community. And it's something that even if you just did one time, it's going to impact you. And all of my friends and family who have been to one, they always leave with a sense of belongingness. And I think that is so special. So thank you for asking.
Yeah, no, that's huge because Marcellus and I speak about how the sense of community is lost simply because, you know, events you usually have to pay to get into and things like that. So, and they hear me talk about the Alzheimer's stuff all the time. So it's similar, but the way I got into Alzheimer's it was through work. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not confident that I have any members of my family who have fought the disease itself, but even I, as someone who has not been affected directly, I went to my first walk, man, and it was just like, okay, yeah, I can get behind this.
Yeah. What was the thing that jumped out to you the most at your first walk?
So honestly, the sense of belonging, right? So I was with my daughter, and you know, they put up a petting zoo. At this one, they had a petting zoo and just little things, and it's different from me being raised in the Midwest. So I'm always hesitant. I deal with social anxiety due to it. But when I was there, it was just like everybody's just kind to you. Mm-hmm. I don't have to look over my shoulder. You know, people are here for all the right reasons.
Right.
And, you know, so I also play the music at the walks, right? So it's up to me to find I provide the vibe in a sense, you know, and it's like, I don't want people to be sad, but I don't want them to feel overjoyous as they think about a past loved one either. Yeah. So
it's a tough position to be in.
Yeah. And so I also play music, and then sometimes they're just like, you played this song, I got to know what it was because it resonated, and it's like, okay. And that just goes back to the music aspect that we discussed. And it's like, I've made friends, you know, and you know, you shout out your mom for backing you. I want to shout out Todd Lammonson, who I went to an after hours event for work, and he spoke to me first, and he was like, well, if you need to get involved, just get involved with this. And he really got me out of my shell. And that's been peak for me as I, you know, graduate, get a career, have to do the politicking that comes with careers and things like that. So, but I always encourage people to do that. But suicide is just so prevalent, even here in Quincy, man. And so that's why I thought it was important to bring that up and have you speak on that, because it's so important. And so many people don't feel seen. And I'm only one man, but it's like there's so many people out here who are willing to just be with you, not even talk, but they're just willing to stand next to you and understand you. And that's why I wanted you to share that. So I appreciate you sharing that. So let's get back to teaching and coaching. Fast forward, you moved to Florida, you're teaching, you're coaching, you're taking all of this with you. How does that reflect in the classroom? So what grades are you teaching? Let's start there. So what grades do you currently teach, and where did you start?
So I got my degree in middle level education. So that's predominantly 6th through 8th grade. And I've mostly taught 7th and 8th grade. It's been a mixture of geography and history, and then math as well. So
peak years.
It's a wild time.
Yeah.
If I had a dime for every time I told someone that and they told me, oh, sweetheart, bless your heart, those patients, like, it's always the immediate response, because we can all think back to our middle school experience and just like, wow, who were we? We were these adolescents with hormones, and you just follow what your friends want to do, and you don't really have a sense of who you are yet. You find that more in high school and later on. And so I love teaching that age, because I feel as if I'm a good role model and someone that can be calm, consistent, and have structure. Now, kids will say they don't like structure in the classroom, but they really do. Like, they need it. And so in my classroom, we have procedures that we follow every day. And at the end of the year, the kids always say, like, we always knew what to expect in your classroom. And so that's a compliment and something I love to hear, because the teachers that don't make it are the ones that don't have the structure. You come into that class and you might have a great student, straight A's, but they feel uncomfortable because they don't know what to expect. And the kids are anxious and they're rambunctious. And I've taught for 9 years now. I've had over 1,000 students, and I want to get to know them as best as I can. And like, me caring is what will stand out amongst anything. They will not, I tell them on day one, you're not going to remember what year the Roman Empire ended, but you're going to remember how your teacher treated you. You're going to remember how your classmates treated you, and the personal connections you make in my room is what I value more than anything. And that is what I love about my job. And so, I taught for 3 years in Illinois in Lincoln, and I just love that experience because it was similar to where I grew up in Macomb, where, similar demographics. And it got me my first taste of, what is this profession like? And I'll take that experience with me forever. When I moved to Florida, I taught math for 2 years in a predominantly Black school. And that was something I always wanted to do. And with COVID taking place and everything that was involved in the move, it was tough for me to get acclimated, but I did, and I persevered through it. And they say that failure is something that's going to motivate you in life. And I honestly think like it took me a lot longer to get acclimated in Florida than I thought. But after those first 2 years, and after kind of taking a step back and understanding like I'm in a completely different atmosphere. I'm teaching something I'm not as passionate about in math as I am in history. And I started to kind of get my feet under me. I felt like I've just blossomed as a person with the way I can connect with kids and just wake up and do something that I love every day. And not everyone can say that about their job, but the fact that like it doesn't feel like a job to me, it feels like I'm hanging out. And I would love, like on my podcast, I've had some former students on before, and to like hear their stories of what I was like as a teacher and how they felt comfortable in my class is something that's what I'm here to do. And I've taught other classes as well, history. The things that we learn in there are great, but the connections that we make and to motivate these kids to be better people is my favorite part about it. And you'll hear people say a lot, kids these days, and it has a negative connotation to it because people are a little skeptical of how much social media plays a role in their lives and, the addiction to technology. Well, I back my students all the time by saying, if any one of us in an older generation were growing up today, we would be doing the exact same thing. You only know what you know. And kids these days have grown up with a device in their hand, and that's what their parents have typically allowed them and enabled them to do. And so when you hear older people say, oh, this is terrible, well, they would have been doing the same thing, and you can't deny that.
Yeah.
Okay. So if they were kicking the can down the street, then we would be kicking the can down the street. Like, you only know what you know.
Yeah.
And so I love to go to bat for my students because I see them on a day-to-day basis and I interact with them, and a lot of people don't. And I'm just so specific to middle school. I could tell you a lot about just, how that generation kind of operates, and it's a cool thing, and I love what I do.
Yeah. Who was your favorite teacher growing up? I could tell you mine right now.
Yeah. Mine was Mrs. Mann. She was my high school algebra teacher.
Okay.
Shout out. And she motivated me, and she's the reason I'm a teacher today. She told me when I was 16 years old, Cal, you help students in a way that I can't even at times. There was one particular friend of mine who was very unmotivated, and I could get him to do his homework. And she said, Cal, I've tried for 4 years and I can't get to him. If you can reach a student like that, you can reach anybody. And as a 16-year-old, it was very meaningful for me to hear that. And I still didn't know if I wanted to be a teacher then. I knew I wanted to coach. But when she told me that, I knew, like, this is it. Like, I can do this. And so when I went to choose my college major, I called her, and we sat down and talked about the options. And she was just so influential, and she cared about me and our entire class. And that is something that is more important than anything you learn content wise. So did you have a similar experience?
So mine was Mrs. Winton or Mrs. Crabtree. Yeah, so I went back to Lincoln, and she cared. And dude, I'm gonna share an embarrassing story with you guys. You're welcome. We were learning cursive, and I couldn't get the letter right. And I was getting so frustrated. I started to cry in class, and she came over and she was just patient, and she walked me through it. I couldn't tell you the letter, but it was that moment where it was like, okay, not all teachers are bad. And that was back in Macomb. I didn't have a teacher as good as her since. I never thought they cared, because my experience in schools is a little different, and this is something you might not notice, but like I was a straight A student, so I wasn't in classes with a bunch of students that look like me. I was almost never. There's always one or two other people that of color in my classes. So it was like they never cared about me. But like then I was like, oh, she cares. And that's what helped me. That's what helped me stay strong, because it was like if one of them cares, some of them care, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think having a caring teacher does make a world of difference. Because I had friends who teachers like wrote them off immediately, but they're just smart as whips.
Yeah.
They got it, but I'm not doing that because they asked, because they don't care about me, and no one cares. And it was just like, nah, man, I care. Like, I want you to do good. Like, I'll do the homework with, like, just taking that initiative to help them out, but also in the sense of, I got it. I get it, because I had her.
And I love asking people that from a teacher's perspective, who was your favorite teacher and why? And it usually comes back to the fact that they cared. And about a year ago, I received an email from a former student in Florida who reached out, and she told me, Mr. Denecke, I want you to read this essay I wrote about you. It was for my freshman English class. And she wrote an entire essay about how being in my class changed her life, and how I emphasize kindness and how to be kind to people. And that little gesture stuck with her. And to read an entire essay about how being in my class influenced her and gave her confidence, and she felt seen and she felt funny because I would laugh at her jokes. Like, had she not written that to me, James, I've had 1,000 kids. I would have never known. Like, kids don't always express themselves, but when they do reach out and share with you how you made them feel, it literally means the world. So I wanted to share that because it was something I'll never forget.
Damn, that's something that gets framed. What? That's awesome. That's and just since we're on the topic of impact, a lot of people ask me these days why I do what I do, in the sense of if music, letting them express themselves, giving them a stage to express themselves, whether it's basketball, giving them a reason to stay in shape and watch their health, give them something to look forward to, because really there's not much for adults here. And it's like the impact. And it's like, I have other grown men telling me, like, we appreciate what you do, bro. Like, we used to just get faded on Saturdays. Now it's nice to hoop, and like, you got us looking clean. Like, you got us right, bro. I appreciate that. I got one guy who told me, he's like, I'm down like 50, 60 pounds. And I was like, really? And he's like, I just look forward to basketball. And it's like, okay, that impact.
Yeah. And that's a testament to you for caring about your community and getting these guys together and doing something that, they were passionate about, or maybe still are, and giving people an opportunity and believing in them is really all we need.
Yeah. And this goes back to my statement of like, there's a loss of community, and it's just, if I could reignite that, man, because everybody used to look out for everybody. That's where we come from, having each other's backs, families looking out for families. And it's like, we grow up and we lost that. So how do we get that back? Well, you can be the spark,
right?
So, all right, less about me, more about you. So you talked about the kids growing up and how, if adults were them, we'd be doing the same thing. Now the kids have access to the world basically with social media. How come social media doesn't always equal connection? How come it's not always received as intentional?
I think that when you're on social media, it's a lot of scrolling. Obviously, there's posting, and you're seeing the highlights of people's lives. You're not seeing the valleys, you're seeing the peaks. And so if you don't make a phone call to someone and really kind of know what's going on in their life, you might have someone posting about, these great ideas in their life and the great things that are happening, but they could be depressed as ever. And so we lose that connection. And as we get older, we all know that our circles shrink. Yeah. And the people that we once were close with, we're not anymore. A simple phone call, a text or something is a little more meaningful than just swiping up on a story and liking or making a small comment. So I think social media does keep us super connected because we can see what people from around the country, around the world are up to. But that intentionality of reaching out to someone and asking a question, I think the art of asking questions is one of my favorite things in life. Like you ask one person a question that can open up doors to literally anything. Yeah. And so we love social media for where it is or what it is, but at the end of the day, you might not know what someone's truly going through unless you ask. So for instance, seeing what you're doing with your podcast, it came to me in December. You've been doing it for years. Yeah. Somehow in December, I caught wind of it and I became more inspired to do more with mine and to just reach out to you to want to get you to share your story. And so that is something that has turned into something that we're doing here right now, which is awesome. Yeah. Had I not been on social media, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. You know, we might have texted or been in contact, but I do love that aspect through it. What are your thoughts on how you stay connected with people through social media?
Honestly, social media is the reason I have a ton of peers I have. Like I can travel to New York and meet up with my friend Obas. I can go to Alabama, meet up with my friend Joel, and it's because of those swipe ups on stories, but it's also because of the intentionality behind it. Because Joel texted me today, "How you doing?" Mm-hmm. You know, or he sent me music, and I was like, "How are you holding up?" And he was like, "Bro, I'm good. Like, how are you doing?" And it started that conversation, and it's like, so I agree with you on it. It's a way, but being intentional with how you connect with someone. But I will say it's been a big part of my life as someone who moved a lot. Dude, I have friends from Macomb, I have friends from Jacksonville, and I still have friends from Quincy. And there were years where it was like I was in Macomb, then I was in Quincy, then I was back in Macomb, and then I was in Quincy, then I was in Jacksonville, and then it was just like, you know. But social media was like, what is this guy up to? You know, there would be some years where it was like, oh, I thought you played for this team, and it's like then you see me in red, and it's like, oh, I played for this, you know? Yeah. And so, but there's a if it's used wisely, it can be really good.
Yeah. And I think you and I are very similar in our want to connect with people. And a few months ago, actually on New Year's, I decided I was going to take a 4-month hiatus from social media and just see how it felt. And by the end of the 4 months, I wasn't craving getting back on it, but I did feel this sense of, okay, I miss it a little bit because I want to be connected. Yeah. I don't find myself scrolling for hours on hours. It's just, I want to know what people are up to so that I can reach out and stay connected with them. Yeah. But you have to be able to balance it and not doom scroll your way into depression.
Yeah. Yeah. So in that 4 months, man, what did you find yourself doing to kind of bide the time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I thought that I would be supplementing it with reading more and with doing my podcast more. And I did read a little bit, which was great. But thinking back on it, I think I just spent more time outside and just being in nature and being in Florida. I can be outside all year, and that's a benefit, obviously. True. And True. And helpful to your mental health. And so I think just spending more time outside and doing things that I found to be beneficial to my lifestyle.
Yeah. So with you dropping social media, you know, and people get caught on doom scrolling, which isn't intentional, right? They're not connecting with people. They're just, do you think people feel a sense of loneliness more so these days than they did before social media was so prevalent in our lives?
I think so. I think you can judge your life based off of how you see others. I think that's a big downfall of social media. And you're trying to compare yourself with your peers, your friends, family, whoever. I don't find myself doing that because I know my self-worth, and I know if I have a friend traveling the world, I'm like their biggest fan. I'm not jealous that I'm there. It's almost a mindset that I've trained myself to always be positive. Yeah. Like no matter what happens, like I know I'm going to make the right decision, and I know I'm going to be positive in the situation, because that's just going back to my brother's situation. Like, ever since that happened in my life, I've just retrained my brain to take everything in a positive light. And if I see somebody at the store who's checking out my groceries and seems sad, like, I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to feel seen.
Yeah.
Because looking at life through my brother's lens, it just really hit me. Like, you don't know what someone's going through. And so every time you're being kind to someone, it could make an impact, whether they tell you or not. Like, we need to be kind. And that's kind of how I see it. And so the loneliness through social media is apparent, but it's more based off of an individual basis, I would say.
Yeah. And you put it down for a little bit, and you were able to, in a sense, find yourself in Florida, you know, more so than if you would have went home and just, you know.
Yeah.
So we're getting to the tail end of this, man, but I've really enjoyed kicking it with you, catching up with you, seeing you in person.
Absolutely.
We've always caught up over the internet. And this goes back to surface level, because people ask this question all the time, but I want to know, like, is there any one piece of advice you would give yourself before leaving Macomb? Not to Florida, just before you left, before you was like, I'm going to ISU, before I'm going to Lincoln.
I mean, the advice I would give myself is to just listen. I think someone said it one time. They said, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Yeah.
You should listen twice as much as you speak. And some people love to speak and not listen. And I'm a listener, which is why this podcast, being the one interviewed, is such a strange experience for me. And it's a cool experience.
Yeah.
So obviously appreciate you having me on and doing this. But to listen to people, I think, gives them a sense of pride, and that when someone wants to listen to them, they feel important. So growing up, I had a lot of positive influences who made me feel like the most important person in the room. And for me personally, that's when someone asks me a question about my life. And people can ask questions, but you can tell whether they're listening or not.
Yes.
They might ask it to save face. Right now, we're locked in. We feel each other's energy.
Yeah.
And that is not always apparent. So to give myself that advice to listen, I think when you listen to people, it just creates connection. And that's what I've done since leaving Macomb, is just connected with people and just found out who I am. And I'm a people person. I'm extroverted. I love to connect people through gatherings, just like you do with your event space here at Sessions and your basketball league and everything you like to do. And I remember when I had you on my podcast, you said, wow, Kyle, like, you're making me sound like I do way more. Like, it was almost like a light bulb moment. Like, I do a lot. And like, you don't always know that, because you're just in the grind of what your everyday life is. But it takes friends and close people to really appreciate and, you know, affirm the things we're doing in life.
Yeah. No. And my friends pointed out a lot, and I just, like, it comes so natural, you know, because growing up, I like that sense of community. I like my dad being able to call my friend's parents, be like, hey, can you come over today? And it's like, yeah, all right, get out of the house. Like, I feel like that's not a thing. So I think, you know, and you mentioned Sessions, and it's like, I want people who, they don't want to be in the house, but they don't want to be out drinking. Like, it's like, you can see it physically, but the mocktail menu, it's like, I'm not forcing you to drink when you come here. I want you to just come hang out. We had people in here drinking water, watching the finals. Yeah. And
shout out to the Knicks. Yeah.
And, you know, that's what it's about. We just got to all hang out. And that's what it's about.
No peer pressure. You don't have to drink to be in the in crowd. And if someone tells you, why aren't you drinking? Like, that's not someone that you want to be associated with. Like, let me do what I got to do to have fun. And it doesn't have to be based around what these social, you know, tendencies tell us to do.
Yeah, ignore that. But we're at the tail end of this, man. And Marcellus is going to kill me if I don't ask you this. What's it like teaching in the urban classroom? And then I got one more question for you. Okay. After that, yeah.
So,
because a big thing for us, you're about to get started. A big thing for us is the disconnect between white teachers and black students.
Yeah.
And so he would chew my head off if I didn't ask you, what has your experience been like teaching black students, and how have you been received, and how have you connected with them?
Right. I love that. I'll start off by saying, before I taught in a predominantly black school, I asked one of my black friends who grew up on the south side of Chicago, I said, hey, what advice would you give me going into an environment that I'm unfamiliar with? And I said, do you think I can make an impact based off of your experience? And he looked at me dead in the eyes and he goes, Cal, I'm going to be straight up with you. He goes, you're just going to be another white teacher to those kids. And that hurt me to hear, even though I had no experience yet.
Yeah.
And it was in my head. And I don't feel like that's the case. 6 years into teaching in an urban environment, I feel like I'm making an impact on Black and brown students. And I feel like my authenticity allows me to connect, even though I didn't grow up in an environment where my classmates all looked like the students that I teach. And so I love it. There's struggles that are involved with that, with cultural differences. I remember being in the first couple of weeks of teaching Medea, the movie series got brought up, and I said, what's that?
Oh, boy. Okay.
And you would have thought the world was ending.
Yeah.
And so I had to ask questions and culture myself into, understanding where these kids come from, and to just know that we have different lifestyles and there's different cultural things that I was unaware of, that it's not this is so different. It's, I'm going to learn your culture so that I can be a better teacher, a better role model, and someone that you can trust. Yeah. And that's what it all comes down to, is trust. And there's been just a lot of great, funny moments of, me not knowing things like that. It's just like, you better learn today. Even something as little as seafood's so big in Florida, and have a student say I'm going to Mr. and Mrs. Crab. It's a chain crab place on the weekend. I go, what is that? Yeah. Again, the world is ending. You never been to Mr. and Mrs. Crab? No, I just moved to it a month ago. Yeah. So there's little things, but I love teaching in a multicultural school where kids from all different backgrounds are able to connect, and kids are kids, man. They're going to connect with each other. And to me, to be on the outside and kind of look and see how the dynamic shifts, you're going to have kids say things to each other based on race. And it's my goal to make sure that they're all open-minded towards each other. And at the end of the day, that is what I'm trying to do. And yeah, it's been a blast, to be honest.
Yeah. You didn't know Medea, huh?
Didn't. Nope.
That's okay. I wasn't around. I would put you. No, I'm just kidding. So my final question, man, to wrap this up is, what does success mean to you now that you've experienced life outside of your hometown?
Yeah. Success to me is, from a personal standpoint, doing what I love to do. So much of our lives are based around work, and you would know better than anybody, James.
I enjoy what I do.
Yeah. So success to me is waking up and not thinking of your job as a chore. And when I tell you, I go in and have so much fun with these kids, it's a blast. Every day is an adventure, and I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off in these classrooms, just at one moment, someone needs a Band-Aid, and the next moment, this kid needs help on homework, and then the nurse is calling. And so, in this world of education, one thing people don't understand is, you're playing the role of therapist, nurse, teacher, coach, all the above. It's not just learning dates and times and things like that. And that's what I love about teaching, and, to have fun with it, too. Our school year ended 3 weeks ago, and I wrote a rap for every single class, and I put every single name in the rap for that class to give them a little shout out to what I remembered about them, and to do that and to hear the reactions live and kind of like a studio type feel was it's the best. And so I'm really happy with how I've continued to live my life and bring my brother along with me and live out his legacy and just give these kids a chance to smile. And to me, that's what success looks like.
Man, that's awesome. Keep doing the work, man. Teachers can be a thankless job, but the real know how important that is. People, it doesn't click with them that, teachers spend the most time with their kids.
Right.
So to have a teacher that cares about their kids, they got a gym in you, man.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you for coming and kicking it with me, making the trip while you're home visiting family. I really appreciate you giving me the time. Like I said, Marcellus wish he could be here.
Mm-hmm.
I did ask the one intrusive thought that I knew he was going to ask. But with that said, I'm James, and we're kicking it with Cal. And this is Kickback. Peace.